Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Idaho SAT School Day Accommodations Overview webinar. This is a continuation of the high-level overviews that College Board and the Idaho State Department of Education are providing for Idaho educators in preparation for the SAT School Day in spring 2019. I'm Eddie Pulaski, Director of Outreach and Implementation and one of the College Board Idaho field team members. Joining me on the webinar today is Melanie Jones from the Idaho State Department of Education and Sharon Calley from the College Board. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and a link will be provided after the webinar is completed. All right, so let's begin. Today's agenda includes an overview of the SAT accommodations process, information for preparing SSD coordinators, a review of common accommodations, a review of the accommodations request process, and information about additional resources and support materials. As a general reminder, all 11th grade students attending public schools in Idaho are eligible to take the SAT. The SAT without essay is the default registration for all students, but Idaho students have the option to take the SAT with essay as an Idaho paid choice, and adding the additional essay to their SAT registration is an individual student choice. Students who wish to take the essay must register for it between January 28th and February 4th, 2019 by 10 p.m. Mountain Time. Bulk registration for the SAT essay is not available. Students may add the essay to their registration through their online College Board account or by calling the College Board. SAT and SAT with essay scores will be available to Idaho SDE for Idaho assessment reports. The school day version of the SAT will be administered on the following dates. The primary test date is April 9th, 2019. The accommodated testing window is April 9th through April 22nd, and the make-up test day for the SAT school day is April 23rd, 2019. The next two slides provide key implementation dates. These dates were sent to test coordinators, district test coordinators, and SSD coordinators in earlier communications. We'll pause for a few moments to review each slide. Virtual schools, whose students will be participating in the SAT at a different time, for those schools, please refer to the key dates document you received earlier. A couple of call-outs on this particular slide will be the accommodations request deadlines for the April school day testing for the March National Administration and the May National Administration, potentially for virtual school students, the bulk registration window, and the student essay opt-in window. Again, you'll receive a copy of this presentation, so you'll have these dates at your fingertips. The second series of implementation key dates include the test dates, the make-up test dates, and the return materials dates. Let's talk quickly about staff roles and responsibilities as a way of an overview and also a reminder. To better align roles across College Board assessments, role titles have been updated for 2019. However, responsibilities have not changed. The roles are now titled Test Coordinator, SSD Coordinator, Proctor, Room Monitor, and Hall Monitor. You can see a description next to each role. As a quick reminder about these roles, test day staff cannot be involved with paid coaching or paid SAT preparation. Test day staff cannot have taken the SAT within 180 days of the administration date. Test day staff should be certified employees of the school district. Any school member, including the test coordinator who will have access to test books before test day, must have a child or a member of their household living under the same roof, taking the same College Board test in the same window at any test site. In small schools, test day staff may serve multiple roles, We recommend the test coordinator remain in the test room and have additional test staff serve as the hall monitor. And in large schools, we recommend the proctors be in the testing rooms with appropriate numbers of room and hall monitors. The test coordinator can then float around the school, assisting with questions and resolving any issues that may arise. Specifically about the SSD coordinator. The SSD coordinator is responsible for being the school's liaison with the College Board's Services for Students with Disabilities office, for submitting accommodation requests for all students who need them at his or her school, for accessing and printing the Nonstandard Administration Report, or the NAR, and assisting the test coordinator in determining rooms and staff required for administering the test with accommodations, and also partnering with the test coordinator to reconcile accommodated testing materials and administer the SAT to students who are testing with accommodations. Schools may have more than one SSD coordinator. However, one person will be identified as the primary SSD coordinator who will receive the communications from College Board. The test coordinator and SSD partner to support students with disabilities. The test coordinator is responsible for planning all administration activities, while the SSD coordinator is responsible for applying for accommodations that will support students with disabilities. Test coordinators enlist the help of the SSD coordinator to assist with the planning and administration for students with disabilities. The College Board professional account is required for all system access. Each user creates their own account at collegeboard.org to allow for a single sign-on to College Board tools, including the SSD Online system and the others that you see listed here. Access codes allow users to link their professional account to each system. Access codes are valid for 1 school year. They're specific for each system that they're used for with the first new login. Access codes are typically provided via email and will only allow you to link your College Board account to the specific system that's identified in that email. SSD coordinators use the SSD Online system to submit requests for accommodations and the EL 50% support on behalf of their students. College Board will then determine the non-standard material orders to be shipped to schools for test date based on these entries. Schools can have multiple SSD coordinators, but only one should be listed as the primary coordinator who will receive the communications from College Board. SSD Online will provide the following reports to assist SSD coordinators: the Non-Standard Administration Report, or the NAR, and the eligibility roster. The NAR will provide a list of students approved for accommodations and provide which accommodations have been approved for testing, which materials are needed, and when students will test, while the eligibility roster is a listing of all students at your school, or AI, with accommodations. New SSD coordinators should go to www.collegeboard.org to create a College Board professional account if you don't already have one. We encourage you to complete the SSD coordinator form found at www.collegeboard.org/SSD. Provide the information about you and your school, obtain your principal's signature, and then fax the form to College Board where the instructions are on the form. An access code will then be sent to you approximately 2 to 3 days after the receipt of your form. Please note that if you're the SSD coordinator for more than one school, you'll need to submit a separate form for each school you work with, but you should only create one professional login account. Let's do a little deeper dive into accommodations and supports for spring 2019. College Board offers these accommodations in alternate test formats for the SAT school day. Supports that are available for all students include repeat directions, time remaining notifications, and calculator for with calculator sections. Standard test format supports include extended time, additional breaks, modified settings, reader, scribe, large block answer sheets, and permission for meds, read, and drinks. Alternate test format supports include Braille, large print, MP3, and assistive technology. EL supports include translated test directions, use of approved word-to-word glossaries, and 50% extended time testing. College Board is committed to making sure that students with disabilities can take the exams with the accommodations they need and will consider all requests to ensure that we measure students' academic abilities regardless of their disabilities. All requests will be entered in the College Board SSD Online system, and there are two types of College Board accommodations. Students with College Board approved accommodations will receive college and scholarship reportable scores. Once approved for accommodations with limited exceptions, a student remains approved for all College Board tests. Eligible EL students can receive 50% extended time for college and scholarship reportable scores when requested in advance. These requests must be submitted for each state administration. So let's look at some common accommodations. Determining accommodations. The accommodations that schools request for students for the SAT should be consistent with the accommodations listed in their IEP or 504 plans for instruction and assessments. In other words, students should already be familiar with the accommodation that they'll be using. We recognize that some terminology used in the creation of an IEP or a 504 may differ from the College Board nomenclature. For example, if a student typically has assessments read aloud in school, they may wish to request a reader or MP3 audio format for oral presentation of the assessment. The school can determine the best option in consultation with the student and family. The College Board accommodations that follow are examples of commonly requested accommodations. The College Board provides many types of accommodations and will review all requests that are made. When considering requests for timing accommodations, please keep in mind that the student must use the entire time for which they are approved. They can't move to the next section or end the assessment when they're finished, even if they're the only student testing in that room. So we're going to pause on the next few slides and look at the screens so that we can view common accommodation requests. On this screen, for example, you'll see requests related to timing, the type of accommodation, the number of days needed for testing, and what to know about these accommodations. So, for example, a student who is seeking a 50% extended time for math accommodation, you'll see that it's a one-day accommodation, and you'll see what you need to know about that particular type of accommodation, versus a 100% extended time for reading accommodation that would result in a two-day accommodation along with what you need to know about that particular accommodation. On this screen, you see requests related to breaks, including extra breaks, extended breaks, breaks as needed, and permission to test blood sugar. On this screen, you see requests related to presentation, providing specific information about the use of an MP3 audio or the use of a reader. Again, please note the combination of accommodations that will occur. In the case of an MP3 audio, the student automatically receives 100% extended time for the writing and language test, and this student will test over 2 days. A student who tests with a reader will automatically receive 50% extended time and extra breaks on all sections, but will likely test on 1 day. Additional information about presentation include details about the use of assistive technology, compatible or ATC devices, Braille, and American Sign Language. The student needed an accommodation for recording answers. You can see on this screen The common accommodations available to a student, including the use of a writer or a scribe, the use of a large block answer sheet, and the use of a computer for the essay if the student is participating in the optional SAT with essay section. Student need an accommodation relative to setting. Common accommodations include small group testing, home hospital testing, preferential seating, and permission for food or medication. And please remember that a copy of this presentation will be available for all Idaho SSD coordinators, so you'll have this information at your fingertips. Now let's discuss the area of English Learner or EL supports. EL students may use the 50% extended time support for SAT. It is offered as an option for EL students who receive extended time as an instructional support. Students taking the SAT will test over 2 days. Scores will be scholarship and or college reportable and must be requested for each state administration. Advanced request is required through the SSD Online and the English Learner Support Dashboard. Word-to-word glossary lists will be expanded to approximately 100 glossaries for spring 2019. The use of glossaries does not require an approval by College Board. The approved list is available at the College Board website that you see listed here, and it will also be available to you on the SDE website. Translated test directions will be available in PDF format. Schools must print the directions for students. No printed directions will come with the test materials. Directions will be available in the following languages that you see on the screen, and the College Board will also support on-the-fly translations of the directions by district-approved translators. Use of translated test directions does not require an approval by College Board. Translations will be available in February 2019 to print from the College Board website, the website that you see in the screen. So let's chat briefly about how to prepare. SSD coordinators should begin managing accommodations by accessing your SSD Online account at www.collegeboard.org/SSDonline and using the dashboard to submit requests, to monitor status, and to print reports. If your school will be administering the SAT school day during the April 9th, 2019 administration, the deadline to submit or change accommodations requests is February 19th, 2019, as you see at the blue box in the lower right corner. The SSD coordinator should identify students who will be testing this year and confirm accommodations. You'll use the dashboard to look students up or to print the eligibility roster. The roster provides all students approved for accommodations at your school. For new students or students who need accommodations that have not yet been requested, you will be asked to submit a request in SSD Online. For students with previously approved accommodations, you should verify the accommodations approved match the student's current identified IEP or 504 accommodation needs, that the student information is the same, such as name, birth date, and graduation date, and that they are correct, and that the student is receiving the testing accommodation on school and district assessments. For any student no longer at your school, you can notate the information on the eligibility roster. You can then fax that roster to the number that you see on the screen, 866-360-0114, to have students removed from your dashboard and from reports. The majority of students with a current IEP or 504 plan will have those same accommodations automatically approved. All applications requests, again, will be submitted through the College Board SSD Online system The entry of those accommodations will go through one of two paths. With school verification, most requests will be approved automatically through the school verification system. The SSD coordinator verifies that the student meets College Board eligibility criteria and the student has documentation on file, such as the IEP or the 504. With documentation review, some requests require additional documentation, such as extended time for more than 100%, different types of assistive technology and software, large print test book sizes greater than 20-point font, and other special requests. These exceptions will require additional documentation for further clarification. If requested, documentation that includes the following information is most helpful in the review process. The state-specific disability was diagnosed, the current documentation, with that potentially varying based on the disability or the documentation, providing relevant educational developmental history, describing the comprehensive testing techniques if applicable, describe the functional limitations, describing the specific accommodations, and establishing the professional credentials of the evaluators. The documentation that was used should be sent to make this determination, even if it's out of date, with any current information about the student. And please note that schools are not required to have students retest to support any documentation request. Any application can be resubmitted if it is not approved, with additional documentation for consideration even after the SSD submission deadline. If documentation is requested, it should address the what, the how, and the why. The what being providing the student's documented disability, the how describing the functional impact and the degree of the impact, and the why showing the need for the specific accommodation being requested. So let's talk a bit about the tools and the resources that are available for SSD coordinators. An exciting tool that we've developed is an on-demand training module for SSD coordinators. The E module includes topics such as an overview of College Board accommodations, details on commonly requested accommodations, a step-by-step tutorial of the accommodations request process and other common activities performed in SSD Online, and tips for preparing for testing, including accessing the NAR. SSD coordinators can review the training in its entirety, which is approximately 40 minutes, or you can choose specific topics as a refresher or a real-time job aid. A link to the SSD module is available on SCE's website, and this link will also be made available to SSD coordinators in future communications from College Board, and it's going to be sent along with the link to this particular presentation. Some additional reminders that we want to make you aware of, particularly submitting a new request in SSD Online in a few steps. To submit a new request in SSD Online, the SSD coordinator will log into the College Board SSD Online system and click Submit Accommodations Request in the upper right-hand corner. Accommodation requests should be submitted for all students who will participate in the SAT School Day administration. To submit a request for 50% extended time for EL students, please remember that this accommodation is a new college reportable support that requires an advanced request. This support must be requested for each state administration. 50% extended time for EL students may be entered at SSD Online in the dashboard beginning January 25th, 2019. A quick note about the Nonstandard Administration Report, or the NAR. The NAR is a valuable tool for SSD coordinators. The NAR lists all students approved for accommodations. It groups students that must test on the primary test day and those who may test in the accommodated window. It includes the test book color and the script name the student should use, and it includes students who will be testing with EL 50% extended time. Examples can be seen on this screen, and I apologize for them being so small, but you will get a copy of this presentation so that you'll be able to see them a little more closely. To manage the NAR, please remember the following. The NAR will display students who have been approved for accommodations at your school who have also been pre-identified in the bulk registration pre-ID process. The SSD coordinator can review the list of students appearing on the NAR and add other students who will be testing with approved accommodations. For example, a student who transferred to your school after the pre-ID file was completed can be added. Steps for viewing the list of matched students and steps for creating the NAR can be seen on this screen.